Apple iPod Socks, 2004. Back in 2004, Apple was riding high on the wave of iPod mania. The sleek white MP3 player was everywhere, on TV ads, in celebrity hands, and in millions of pockets. But just when the world thought Apple couldn't surprise us any further, they dropped socks. Not new headphones, not chargers, actual knitted socks for your iPod. They called them iPod Socks, and they came in a pack of 6 bright colors: blue, green, pink, orange, gray, and purple. At first glance, it was peak Apple, quirky, minimalist, and strangely stylish. Priced at $29, these tiny sleeves were meant to protect your precious iPod. But the real question was, protect it from what? The socks were soft and snug, yes, but there was no screen protection, no padding for impact, and you couldn't even use the scroll wheel or see the display without pulling the entire iPod out. It was like buying a raincoat that didn't open. People bought them, of course, some because it was Apple, others because they liked the colors. But within months, reality set in. This wasn't a useful tech accessory. It was a fashion statement for a gadget that didn't need one. The Motorola Rocker E1, 2005. In 2005, the world was shifting. Phones were getting smarter, and iPods were still king of music. Somewhere in the middle, Apple and Motorola thought, why not blend the two? Enter the Motorola Rocker E1, the first phone ever to support Apple's iTunes. It seemed like a dream collab on paper. A phone with iPod functionality? Game changer. Apple handled the software, Motorola did the hardware, and Steve Jobs himself introduced it on stage. That alone created massive hype. But the reality? Not quite as slick. The ROKR looked outdated even on launch day. Bulky, plasticky, and slower than most phones on the market. And here's the real kicker. Even though it had iTunes, it could only store 100 songs. Not because of hardware limitations, but because Apple capped it. That's right, they intentionally limited the phone, possibly to protect iPod sales. The user interface felt clunky. Syncing music was slow, and the experience? Frustrating. It had all the excitement of an iPod, trapped in a flip phone's body. Within months, people were calling it one of the most disappointing tech releases of the decade. By 2006, Apple quietly distanced itself from the ROKR and introduced something much more revolutionary: the iPhone. The ROKR faded into obscurity almost instantly. What was pitched as the future of mobile music ended up being a rushed experiment. The Sony Raleigh, 2007. 2007 was a legendary year in tech. The iPhone was born. Facebook was catching fire. And in the middle of it all, Sony introduced something unexpected. It was called the Sony Raleigh. Imagine a plastic egg that played music, rolled around on your table, lit up in sync with your songs, and flapped its little arms like wings. That was the Raleigh, a dancing MP3 player. Literally. At first glance, it looked futuristic. It had Bluetooth, built-in speakers, and even motion sensors. You could choreograph its movements to your music using Sony software. It twirled, blinked, and shook in rhythm, like a mini rave in your living room. But then reality hit. The Raleigh cost around $400 at launch. For something that could only store about 1 gigabyte of music and didn't really do anything practical. It wasn't portable. It wasn't a speaker you'd bring to a party. And most people didn't want to spend hours programming a plastic egg to groove to their playlist. What started as a whimsical, almost magical idea quickly felt like a novelty. Fun for 10 minutes, then back in the drawer. By 2009, Sony quietly discontinued it. No big farewell, no apology, just gone. Looking back, the Raleigh feels like a fever dream, a bold attempt to mix robotics, music, and style, but with no clear purpose. It's what happens when a company chases cool without asking if people actually need it. Google Glass, 2013. In 2013, Google introduced something that was supposed to change the world, a pair of futuristic-looking glasses that put the power of a smartphone right on your face. You could make calls, take photos, get navigation directions, all with a voice command or a tap on the side of the frame. It sounded like something straight out of Black Mirror. Tech so cool, it was borderline sci-fi. But here's the problem. No one really wanted to look like a cyborg. The first issue? Google Glass wasn't exactly subtle. People walking around wearing them were met with stares, whispers, and a sense of "why are you recording me?" It made privacy a concern, with some cities even banning it in public spaces. The device was also buggy, had limited functionality, and the battery life was short. Really short. The real kicker was the price. When it launched, Google Glass was around $1,500 for a piece of tech that wasn't even fully finished, and for which the primary use cases were, well, a bit unclear. Could you really use it to browse the web and answer calls without looking like a fool? Probably not. People didn't know what to do with it, and the social stigma surrounding it was hard to shake. So, after a few years of trying to figure out its place in the world, Google pulled the plug on the project in 2015. It was clear, while the technology behind Google Glass was impressive, the world wasn't ready for wearable tech that was so in your face. The Juicero, 2016. In 2016, a startup called Juicero launched a $400 machine that was supposed to make fresh juice more convenient than ever. The idea? You'd buy specially designed juice packs, slide them into the machine, and it would squeeze out the juice with precision. The future of fresh juice at the push of a button. But here's the catch. The press soon found out that the expensive Juicero machine was, in fact, a $400 piece of equipment that could do something you could do with your hands. The juice packs could easily be squeezed by hand, without the need for an expensive machine. In fact, a reporter from Bloomberg tested it out and found that the Juicero was essentially a glorified $400 press for juice bags that were already perfectly squeezable by hand. Consumers caught on fast. The tech community laughed it off. The media roasted it. And within a year, the company shut down. The irony? The juicer that was supposed to revolutionize fresh juice ended up becoming a symbol of everything wrong with the tech world.